child for your student. Likewise, a lot of our parents have opted for private school options because they're just not pleased with their local public school options for high schools and middle schools and so forth. And so the work that we're doing is to really transform that middle school and high school experience for all of our students. And actually, you know, since we have some parents who are, what is it that you look for in education for your child? When you're a student, you said your son is going on to high school shortly in the 8th grade. When he graduates from high school, what do you want your child to have? What skills, what abilities do you want them to have when they leave us? You can just raise your hand, throw out thoughts, ideas.
Analytic skills, you know, to be analytical and problem solving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Critical thinking, analytical skills, communication skills. And so about 4 years ago, we did stakeholders meetings all around the county, and we found really that's what all parents want. When it boiled down to it, all students want their students to be an effective communicator and collaborator, being able to work with others. They want them to be effective problem solvers. They want them just really to be responsible people. And, you know, how do we make our students so that they're not so insular, but that they're engaged in their citizenship, both locally and globally? And so we codified all that information. There's some information out there in our profile of a graduate. So when our students leave Prince George's County Public Schools, we want to make sure that they're equipped in all of those areas. And how we're measuring ourselves is that by 2017, we want all of our students to be college and career ready. And how we're measuring that is we want our students to graduate with an AP, Advanced Placement, IB, International Baccalaureate, or dual enrollment course in their course history. And so you might be wondering, why is that? Because the best predictor of college success is college success. And if a student is able to take those courses while in high school and persist through them, then we have some reasonable assurance that when they go on to college, that they'll be able to succeed in college without the need for remediation. We also want them to have a certification by the time they leave this as well. Does anyone in here have a certification in addition to maybe whatever degree you have, a CISSP or PMP or CSOP? So even in our day-to-day work, organizations and employers are looking for more than just what degree you have. They want to know, do you have skills in a particular area that I can use in my business? And so we want to give our students the opportunity to get that while they're in high school. We have about 24 projects. I'm seeing from the screen. We have about 24 projects in secondary school reform, but the cornerstone of that work is our Career Academy work. And the reason the Career Academies are so important is they give high school students what they need in order to be successful. That's rigor, relevance, and relationships. Some will believe that because we're focusing on developing careers for our students, that it's not rigorous. But to the contrary, we're making sure that all of our students who are in a Career Academy take 4 years of mathematics and take 2 years of the world language. That exceeds the state requirements for graduation. That exceeds Prince George's County Public Schools requirements for graduation. But we know it's critically important because that's the minimum requirements to get into any of our state institutions. The second R in rigor, relevance, and relationships is the relevance. And really the relevance should come first. It should come before the rigor because that's the why. Why am I doing this? And so this summer my first year was saying, well, you know, we're going over this Algebra 2 trigonometry work. And he said, well, why am I learning this? And I said, it doesn't matter because I said so. That's why I learned. And so a lot of you might have grown up in households like mine, but that was because I said so wasn't enough. But honestly, for our students, that's not enough. They want to understand, why am I learning this? How does this connect to what I'll be doing in the future? And through our Career Academies, we're helping students make those connections. So if you're sitting in a business and finance academy, when you go to your math class, the math teacher is integrating that into what you're learning. Perhaps they're also covering interest rates. When you're sitting in your social studies course, how does the business or economics of the time when you're talking about the American Revolution come into play? And so it's actually helping students to make connections between what they're interested in or the theme that they're studying, as well as in their content areas as well. And the third lever is relationships. Some of you may have gone to a very large high school. It's very easy to go through 4 years nameless and faceless and fall through the cracks. And so by creating these smaller learning communities within the school, we're able to help students to have a cohort of teachers and a cohort of students that are focused on making sure that they're successful in pursuing their career and their post-secondary goals. are our high school academies. There's 13 of them. A couple of years ago, we conducted community meetings, and we asked parents like yourselves, what programs would you be interested in for your students? We also asked our students to answer that same question. We sent surveys out to the high schools and had them tell us, what programs would you like to take? What programs would you like to see in your high schools? And we thought it would vary. We thought, well, maybe if you go to the northern part of the county, it might be different than the southern part of the county. But the truth of the matter was, there was really no difference. The top 5 were the top 5, no matter where we went. But we had to go beyond what parents wanted and what students think that they want. But we had to actually look at labor market research. So we went to the U.S. Department of Labor Statistics to find out what are the industries that are growing in the nation. And we also went to the Maryland State Department of Education to find out what are the industries that are growing within our own state. And so we used that information to develop these 13 career academies. You can think about these academies like a school or a college within a university. So within each academy, there's various programs to study. My favorite right here was the Law, Education, and Public Service Academy. They have a teacher program, a child worker development program, forensics, pre-law and social justice program, and a homeland security program. So what you see here is just kind of a high level of what's covered, but there's various programs to study, over 50 when you add up all of the academies. These are our high school clusters. Some of you may have heard about going to the cluster model here at Prince George's County Public Schools. The reason for that is, as I mentioned, it really didn't matter where you lived in the county. Everyone was interested in pretty much the same areas or career fields. So we wanted to offer all those 13 career academies in each of the clusters. So every cluster will offer all 13 career academies and different schools within the cluster, but they'll have them all. In the long run, we're hoping that students will be able to pick the career field that they're interested in studying and go to the school in their cluster that offers that particular major, as opposed to necessarily just going to the school that's around the corner or down the street. So we did a lot of work this year. As I mentioned, we have about 24 projects that are underway as it relates to college and career readiness. How we organize the work is just these 3 levers. Raising expectations. How can we make sure that all students achieve and are achieving at high levels? Expanding opportunities. How do we provide more choices for our parents and our students? And enhancing our students' experience. How are we providing the supports that they need to be successful as they go through their middle school and high school careers? And so I'm going to share with you just a few of the things that have gone on under each of those particular levers this year. So as it relates to raising expectations, as I mentioned, all of our career academies, we want students to take 4 years of mathematics and 2 years of world language. Well, certainly that's not just good for our career academy students right now. We want that to be the standard for all of our students because we know that's the minimum bar to get into any of the universities in our state system. And so we put forth an administrative procedure that we hope to get passed by the school board to make that a mandate for all of our students so that we can ensure that all of our kids are college and career ready. We've also increased our rigor this year by providing professional development to our AP teachers and our principals and our school counselors. So we had a study done by the College Board, which is the organization that develops the advanced placement test. And so they identified some growth areas for us as a district. And so we've begun to implement those suggestions. And this year alone, we've seen a 3% increase in our pass rate of AP exams in 1 year. And that's in part due to the work of providing professional development for the teachers to be better equipped to teach the content to the students in those courses. We've always done pretty well in the county in terms of access to AP exams. We always show very well in terms of the number of minority participation in the AP exams. But what we really wanted to focus on was making sure that those who are taking exams actually sit for the exams and pass the exams. We've also implemented advisories in our middle school. We usually have a middle school student. And so what that looks like is it's a time set aside during the school day where students and teachers in smaller groups can discuss college options, can discuss post-secondary goals, can discuss college, can discuss personal and social issues, things such as bullying and things of that sort. And we have a curriculum that was developed by the College Board as well that we use with our students in that advisory period. We've also increased our access for students to online credit recovery opportunities. So several folks in this room, I'm sure you did well in high school, you went on to college, and you got your degree and all that. But some of our kids, they need a do-over. And so this is a way for students to not get a do-over just by sitting in a seat for X number of hours, but actually ensuring that they master the content. So when you do credit recovery in an online environment, all the program cares about is have you mastered the concept. And once you master the concept, if you need a little more time, you get a little more time. If you need a little less time, you get a little less time. And that way you're able to move through at your own pace. But what we're really looking towards is, have you understood, have you grasped what we're trying to teach you, not how long did you sit in the seat. And so this year we had about 314 courses offered with about 74% pass rate. We also tried this summer an online system for our summer school. So we're looking forward to the data from our students who did the online summer school as well. Expanding opportunities, I've talked about a little bit already. This year we've implemented 5 career academies in 9 of our schools. We're expanding next year to 8 career academies in 14 schools. And we've also added courses to our curriculum and redesigned some of our curriculum to support those academies. So make sure we provide additional advanced placement and dual enrollment courses. All of our career academies have advanced placement options in them, as well as some of them already have dual enrollment courses. A dual enrollment course is where you actually either take the course at the college or the professor comes to the school and you get both college credit and high school credit for the course. And so we're trying to make sure that all of our career academies have dual enrollment options as well. We're working with several of our local colleges and universities to provide that service to us. 6 of our schools participated this year in the National Academy Foundation membership process. And in fact, they had their national conference here about 3 weeks ago in DC. And Dr. Hyde, our superintendent, was asked to come and give a welcome address. And there he gave information about the fact that we're going to our wall-to-wall career academy model here in Prince George's County. And just the enthusiasm of the audience and asking a lot of questions about how we move in that direction. Because oftentimes in districts you'll see maybe one school starts to have career academies or it's very piecemeal, but they don't use it as an overall strategic way to reform high schools. And so we had a lot of great conversations with other cities around the country who are looking towards us to figure out how are you all able to implement it, especially in a district of this size, so that they could follow a similar model. As I mentioned, we train teachers on the use of digital learning platforms. What you'll see different in some of our middle schools next year is an intervention and enrichment period. So if I'm an 8th grader and I'm struggling in algebra, when do I get help? How do I get help? If you're lucky, your school might have a resource teacher and they pull you out of some other classes you probably should be sitting in to get that intervention. We've redesigned the middle school schedule so that they can take advantage of an enrichment and or intervention and enrichment period. So that means if you're struggling in that class, you can actually be in that intervention period and get additional support. Now let's say you're a student that doesn't need intervention. Well, then you'll be taking an enrichment program during that school time. And it's not for the whole year. So perhaps you're struggling for the first 6 weeks of the school year. Then you might only be in that intervention period for that 6 weeks. And maybe the next 6 weeks, you don't need it. So you'll be in an enrichment experience. And so it doesn't pigeonhole students into an enrichment or an intervention mode for the entire year. It's based on your need at that particular time in the school year. We've also developed some formative and summative assessments for our high school. So many of you might be familiar with our high school assessment process in biology and algebra and things of that sort. But what we've realized is we also need to do some standardized assessments in other areas that the state doesn't test. So right now, if I'm a teacher and I give one end-of-course exam, it can be different than an end-of-course exam that you give. And there's no way for us to really measure what students are learning from school to school. So this will help us to have a better idea of what students are learning, what they're mastering, and help bring some standardization to the content that's being taught in our classrooms. These are the academies that we implemented this year, and we're adding some next year: the architecture and design, engineering science, graphic arts, and health sciences. And several of them are actually being implemented in the neighborhood school to Fairwood. Duval will start offering engineering and science, graphic arts, media, and communication for this upcoming school year. Last year they began with our consumer services, hospitality, and tourism academy. We served, actually I think closer to 900 students because I was in information technology here this year. I just wanted to share with you a few of their experiences. So this past school year was our first year of implementation of the career academies. And so what we had to do first was design the courses. So one of the courses students took in this particular academy was computer software applications. And for their experiential learnings, they actually get out and engage with professionals in the industry. And so they went to Howard University and they met with professors and students. And if you ask any of the kids at the beginning of the business and finance program, oh, what do you want to be? They say, oh, an accountant. Might say, oh, I'm supposed to be a stockbroker. But what this experience helped them to see is other areas in business and finance. So actuarial science is a major at Howard University. Supply chain management. So it kind of broadened their horizons of what it means to be a business professional. In global studies, students were taking our foreign policy issues course. We also provided each of the schools with a language lab. And when you go in there, it looks like when you went, they all have their headsets on, and the teacher is either speaking to them in various languages or providing them with programs where they actually have to do translations and things of that sort. And then we gave them iPads so they could actually keep track of or create a digital portfolio as it relates to their language proficiency skills.
Lateefa.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. So, is the school system continuing the international baccalaureate? Because I know
Yes.
Parkdale is doing that for a while. They're still doing that?
They're still doing it. So, international baccalaureate, we could talk a little bit more about that. But what we've done is co-locate all of our global studies academies with the schools that have an international baccalaureate program. The reason for that is international baccalaureate, for those who aren't familiar, is an application program. You have to apply, you have to get in. Then you have 2 years of what they call PDP or pre-diploma. You're a pre-diploma student. And then in the 11th grade, you actually enter into the IB program. Well, of course, not all students want to make it through the application process. And even if they do make it through the application process, they don't make it through the PDP process to be an IB student. So co-locating our Global Studies Academy at our IB schools gives those students an opportunity. Those students clearly have an interest in international affairs and the global economy, those types of things, opportunity to engage in global issues and engage in a program whose focus on in that area, even if they don't make it into, let's say, the IB program for whatever reason. That's kind of how we decided how to match that up. The reason that we don't see it included as a part of the academies is because all of our academies are open enrollment and open access. And so what we're talking about with the career academies is if you have an interest in that area, if you want to explore particular career fields in depth, then it's open to all of our students. There's no barriers to entry. And IB clearly has a barrier to entry that you have to overcome to get in. But it is one of our programs in the county. It's a program that's continuing in the county as we implement the career academies. We actually had an IB diagnostic this year where the International Baccalaureate organizations came in and assessed how our program is doing and provided suggestions for improvement and things of that sort. We also have Frederick Douglass is currently a middle years program as a part of IB and they're putting in an application to become a full IB diploma program as well.
Thank you.
I got a question for, I was going to wait till the end to finish. Is that okay?
Either way is fine.
Well, looking on to the IB, wouldn't it make sense to have been here because you have to test in the science or tech as well?
Yes.
And there's nothing here about
No, I agree. We will definitely add an IB and also I wanted to add in something else as well as I was looking through it. It'll come to with the other program, but BPA. Because you have to test into BPA as well. Yes.
What is that?
I'm sorry, visual and performing arts.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
you have to audition into that program.
So currently right now, if a child would like to enter, for instance, the Frederick Douglass Middle Years program, would they have to test in to get into the IB program later?
So the middle years program is slightly different because it starts in the middle school. And so the students participate in the middle years program in the middle school and that follows them to their high school, which in this case is Frederick Douglass. But the middle years program ends at the end of 10th grade. So presumably those students still have to have completed their requisite courses and made their requisite GPA and grades in order to proceed into the IB component of the program once it's offered at Douglass.
So if you're not zoned for Frederick Douglass, can you still enter that program?
You can still enter the IB program through our general IB application process. So based on where you live, you would submit your IB application and you would be routed to the appropriate school that offers the IB program in your area.
Even at the middle school level?
Not at the middle school level. At the middle school level, you can only enter it if it's at your neighborhood middle school.
So is that the same with the academies? Because that was my question, is if my child is interested in one of the academies, but it's not yet in their school district,
Can they go outside of the school district into that academy?
At this point in time, no. You can only be a part of an academy if it's offered at your boundary school. Our goal is to move towards students being able to go to a school based on the academy that you're interested in and not simply based on where they live. However, in order to do that, we first have to have all the academies in place for transportation purposes. Otherwise, you'll see huge swings and shifts in population from school to school. And so our goal is over the next several years to implement all the academies first and then allow the choice model within your particular cluster. I will say, however, if you're interested in a program that's at a school that's under enrolled, you can put in for a voluntary transfer to a school that's under enrolled, and then you could follow up with that particular school's counselor to say that you're interested in the program. However, the caveat there is if you're transferring to a school that's under enrolled, you can provide your own transportation. So that's just something to keep in mind.
I got a question. I've been hearing about this clusters now for 4 years. I mean, truly. It's taken a long time to institute this. And the one thing I don't hear anybody talking about is equity amongst the cluster schools. I mean, I looked at this just because I hadn't looked at this in a long time. Yesterday, I made a comparison between Duval and Bowie, for instance, and there's still a lot of inequity within those cluster schools. And so if you give people a choice, you got Elder Roosevelt, Duval, Bowie, and Parkland. Who's not going to choose Roosevelt or Bowie and not choose Duval or Parkland? I mean, school choice has been in a lot of other districts that, you know, Montgomery County for like almost 20 years. And I had a child that was there when it first started. But the beauty of it was that there was equity in terms of the scores, in terms of the teacher population, among the schools. And so you truly were just choosing a school based on your child's desires and interests. Here, that's not the case. So how are you going to combat that?
So one of the things that we're putting in place, I haven't gotten quite to that part of the presentation. We can fast forward. We're starting a career interest inventory system, and we've contracted with Connect EDU, and that's actually a process where our counselors will work with our students to do an online platform, and it'll actually generate based on your interests. These are the career academies that would be most suited to you. And it's going to be an iterative process. So one of the things that you mentioned is, how do you pick a school based on your interests
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't think that parents will allow their children to go to a school simply based on interest. If the test scores,
right?
Are not. I'm talking about is amongst the schools, not so much how to select a school, but to say, okay, I'd love my child to go to, an academy at Duval, but hey, I'm looking at the environment report. I'm looking at the Deuce lines. I'm looking at this and that, and that doesn't seem to be the school for us. So how do you combat?
So the first thing
there's not equity amongst that cluster in terms of their scores, in terms of all the kind of parameters that most parents look at.
And so it's interesting. One of the things you mentioned first was, okay, so I've heard about this cluster model for a few years because we started just trying to gather information, but this is our first year of implementation, and we'll have another 4 or 5 years before we actually get to where students will be able to do their choice. Part of it is just the reason you mentioned. Part of it is financial, and the fact that we need to implement things over time from a budgetary perspective and just from a prudence perspective to make sure that the academies are functioning well. So, for example, we started with an academy this year, and then we realized, getting feedback from the teachers, that it wasn't, the sequence of courses wasn't quite right. So that also gives us time to adjust before implementing it wholesale in all of the schools that's supposed to have the academy. But also during that time, we're working with the principals to increase the quality and the rigor of the schools already in place. So it gives us time to continue to train our teachers on AP. We've had significant principal turnover, as you may be aware, this year and select high-quality teachers. Actually, we were talking before the program started about the changes you've seen in Glendale Elementary in just 1 year with the change in leadership. And so we're looking at using this time as a time to build, as a time to help our schools to get those test scores from where they are to where they need to be. So I mentioned the assessments that we have now for our high-stakes tests from the state, and that's because we also need to do some due diligence on our side in terms of how do we get all of our schools to a level playing field. And so while it takes time, there's a reason why it takes time. And I think the commitment of the board and the leadership and the teachers to this work is important, and they've recognized that it's not something that you can just kind of flip the switch and go to in 1 year. That's the areas, and those are the places where it hasn't been very successful and where you've had a lot of growing pains. In fact, we've learned from things we've done already in the county, such as our science and tech program. Everyone in this room knows that those programs are not equal. And so this is an opportunity for us to try to get it right and not just hurry along and let folks kind of create their own homegrown version of a career academy, but to actually be thoughtful about it and making sure that all of our schools are at a comparable level so that they're not competing with one another for students based on their reputation, but actually based on the career interests of the students. But you're absolutely right in terms of that observation.
My other question was, when you talked about the academies, do you guys, this is something I've always been frustrated with our county about, and that is, since this is a perfect opportunity for these academies to have partnerships with industry.
Yes.
And
is
it going to happen?
Oh, great question. So in January, I'm glad you asked this. Actually, I'm hoping that maybe some of you will come alongside us. In January, we held our first business advisory breakfast, and we invited about 100 business partners from around the county, and they came and learned about our career academies. And what we've designed is each academy has an advisory board. And on that advisory board are members from industry, members from higher education. We also like to have a parent sit on each of the advisory boards, and we also have representatives from the teachers. And the advisory boards actually are what make this model work. So when we sit down with our curriculum, it's not just us as educators deciding what that curriculum is going to be. We take that to the advisory board, and the advisory board. So if you're an engineering company, what do you want to see out of our engineering and science program? What should our kids be able to do so that you would even hire them, so that you would consider them? And so our advisory boards, again, they have a business partner review the curriculum. They provide feedback on the courses that are offered. They provide experiential learning opportunities for students that we're going to talk about. So, for example, our law education and public service students, the state's attorney's office is one of our business partners on that advisory board. They send attorneys into our classroom all year long to actually teach certain cases to our students, to teach them the vocabulary of debate and the procedures of debate and things of that sort. We've had students who work with our community colleges as well. And so the business partnership is a huge component of it. Actually, in our 12th grade year, we want students to have an internship experience, a paid internship experience, preferably. And our business partnerships and the business advisory board are going to be the individuals who are tasked with and charged with helping to find our students internships as they go through and matriculate through the program.
And I'm talking about actual partnerships where there's true partnerships with money attached.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Not just being on the board.
And you know, to be honest, we're actually looking for more involvement. I found that folks will actually write a check, which is nice. But what we really want them to do is be engaged with our students. Like, I don't want you to just write a check and not interact with our students. And so the advisory board is a great way to. So for instance, Duval is having a graphic arts, media, and communication program next year. That advisory board has already started to meet. They actually meet at Duval every month. And so folks from NBC and Radio 1 and from Bowie State University, all of those folks actually get to come to the school and have their meeting. That also provides an opportunity to interact with the students and the staff and things of that sort. And so, yes, I mean, writing a check is great.
Writing a check, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying partnership is a true partnership. And maybe they have to look at some models from some other counties and some other jurisdictions, but there are true partnerships where they not only write a check, but they're also in the school.
Exactly.
I remember John Hopkins, I remember Marriott, I remember, I can't remember, it's been a while now, but they actually had units in the school, did the kind of advisory work, but they also, like Marriott, for instance, had funded a section of the school that was hospitality.
Yes.
They put the bill for that. So I'm saying, and the same thing with John Hopkins, they actually, the medical area of this particular school, they funded it.
Yes.
So that's what I'm talking about. They were in the school. They still have these partnerships and advisory councils and boards and all, but they were actually a part of the program. The program went on for years. So that partnership was established and continued. So that's what I'm talking about.
No, I agree with you. And so one of the things we're trying to do now is set up a way for them to donate. So already the advisory board started to contact us to say, We want to donate either equipment or finances or what have you, and figuring out what that structure looks like for them to be able to donate to the programs of a particular school and all that. Right now, it comes through our central office, and we will, route it back out to schools. We're trying to determine should it be a nonprofit, et cetera, et cetera. Because each advisory board get their own nonprofit. So you're absolutely right that they need to be a part of not just providing advice on how the program should run, but that hopefully they also have a vested interest and want to provide not only their intellectual resources but their financial resources as well.
You said that we'd like to have paid internship experience.
Yes.
Work, I believe, for about 12 years.
Yeah, we'd like them to have paid internships, particularly for our students who are lower or moderate income. That's a trade-off. So if I'm at an internship that's not paid, that is probably time that I could be spending somewhere else being paid to do something else. And so we're looking with working with our partners and organizations to help to provide paid internships for our students. And there are also other ways to get experiential learning opportunities. So, for instance, our Global Studies Academy, we're looking to have students to study abroad. And so if they study abroad, that will be considered their internship experience. It was related to their academy and something beyond the four walls of the school building. But what we're really talking about is a work-based learning continuum. The continuum that doesn't just end, it doesn't start in 12th grade. It starts in the 8th and 9th grade with career exploration, job shadowing, actually having individuals come into the school to talk about career fields, and moving up towards actually going out into the world of work and experiencing an internship or a research project and things of that sort. I think we've covered a lot of the rest of the presentation, so we can just take questions.
I have questions. Are all students going to be in an academy? Is it required that they choose an academy?
At some point, the thought process is that all students will choose an academy. And I've gotten questions from parents with, well, what if my child doesn't like anything you guys offer? First of all, there's about 50-something programs. But it's possible, right? I mean, you might have that student that just can't find exactly what they're looking for. In those cases, it's in consultation with a school counselor. And so you would sit down with the school counselor and say, here's what I'm interested in. What are the courses that we could put together to develop a plan? The point is to have a plan. What's your goal and how are you going to get there? And so maybe we don't have a defined plan for something that you're interested in, and that's fine. Then work with your school counselor to figure out what is your plan. What do you want to accomplish over the next 4 years, as opposed to just taking maybe some random electives and then walking across the stage.
So basically, going forward, once different high schools transition to the career academy model, you will no longer have general studies per se students anymore. So everybody's going to be in some sort of program going forward. Okay. So right now, DeVal, since they have career academies, there are no general studies students per se?
There are some, since they're just starting, but for the most part, students have selected or opted into one of the career academies that they're offering. And in some instances, they have students who work with their school counselor to chart their own path because they have a particular goal in mind of what they want to achieve through their high school.
So how long does it typically take for, once a career academy is established at a school, how long does it take to get all of the kids in some academy? Is it like a 2-year process?
It's probably about a 4-year process if you think about it, because we typically recruit freshmen. So you start as a 9th grade